Hey everybody, I have about 29 flights on my new RC Powers Mig29 version 4, and I have already done kind of a bit of a walk around and comparison video when I did the flight video on this plane, comparing it to the Mig29 version 3. I just wanted to talk a little bit more specifically about some of my my build techniques that I used and that I tried, and some of my impressions on the build in general. You know, now that I've got it dialed in pretty much exactly where I want it. Anyway, just in general, I found this build to be actually a little bit more easy and straightforward than the V3. I really liked the setup for the fuselage. I mean, I suppose you could do the same thing on the V3, but rather than it being sort of a four-piece wrap all the way around the bulkhead, this was more of a two-piece. So you had you've got one piece here with the cheeks and the bottom part, and then this top piece is a separate piece. So what that allowed me to do, I found, was get the bottom part and the cheeks really nice and square on the bulkhead. I mean, here's the side of the bulkhead, and a piece extends forward here, and then once that was good and square, then be able to square the top piece on, and I think it just made everything go together a little bit easier. Anyway, just my my thoughts. What I did actually when I built this nose, I tried a slightly different technique. These two pieces here, where my thumb and my finger are, they're separate, I think, back to about here. But anyway, that doesn't matter. What I did was before these are put together, let's say you essentially have 6 sort of fingers sitting there like this, waiting to be formed together as a nose. So what I did on the side pieces here was I glued these two side pieces together, and I used a technique that my friend Stefan Moran, SG Moran, has shown in videos, and I used foam tack glue for 99% of it, and then in a couple spots I just sort of spot welded with a little dab of hot glue, just so that it would hold together a little faster. I find small amounts of hot glue, for me anyway, dry faster than foam tack. And then I just sort of pinned that together until it dried. So now essentially I have 4 sort of fingers to form together rather than 6. And then I found that went together a little bit easier. So just something new that I tried on this nose, and I also tried it on my F18 version 4. You can see over there that's waiting to be finished, and found that it helped the nose go together a little bit more easily. One thing, the Mig29 V4 is dubbed the Speed Master, and it definitely is. I found just with the way the plane is designed and some other tips and tricks here that I'll talk about, I got 82 miles an hour top speed with this plane. It essentially weighs the same as my Mig29 version 3 with the same motor, which top speed on that was 74. This one was 82, so pretty significant jump in speed there. So this is the speed plane of the RC Powers V4 lineup. So just a few things that, again, I think probably make that on their own, maybe they don't make the plane go faster, but as when you add all of them up together, I think that they do contribute to getting a few extra miles an hour out of the same power plant. So what I like to do before I put the plane together, you can see here on my wing, I have the leading and trailing edges are symmetrically sanded and shaped. So I think what that does is it just helps the airflow. I know 6 millimeters doesn't seem like a lot, but when you think about it, the air flows over. You're still going to get a certain amount of turbulence on the trailing edge of those surfaces. So any little amount of reduction that you can do, I think, helps. So before I put all the pieces together, I sand all those. So like the vertical stab rudder, this entire the elevon, and this forward piece here, I do all of that because I find it's a lot easier I just take it outside, sort of have an old scrap piece of plywood that I lay it on, and I sand it with, I normally start off with about a 150 grit and then really sort of smooth it in as much as possible using 220 grit. So much easier to do when that's laying flat. I also do the same thing. You can see I like to enlarge my prop slot. You might not necessarily like that look, but I find it just gives the, a little bit more air for the prop to breathe. One of the disadvantages of prop and slot planes is you do lose a certain amount of efficiency over a straight pusher where the motor might be on the back, or a tractor where the motor might be on the front. So every little bit of efficiency you can help squeeze out of the airflow, the better. I also do the symmetrical thing on the leading edge here to try and help make the airflow as it's flowing over the wing and everything be as smooth as possible, and then as smooth the air coming off of the prop, having the least amount of turbulence as well, to help promote as much efficiency there as possible. What I also did, this is a modification from plans, was I ran all my push rods. I tried to make this prop slot area or prop wash area here as clean as possible, top and bottom. So I ran all of my push rods on the outside, and I also put my hinge for my rudder on the outside as well, so that help reduce the turbulence there. And you can see here on the bottom, I think I already pointed this out on my other video. Normally on the plans, the Elevon push rod would be on the inside here. The nice thing about this new design here is that you don't have to cut away. Like normally on other planes, if I wanted to run my push rod out here, because this piece would be moving, I'd have to cut a piece out. But because of the way this Elevon new Elevon design is, I just put my control horn on the outside. I didn't need to alter the control surface there at all. Just one thing I want to show you here that worked great. I got a little overzealous when I was sanding, and I put my control rod a little bit too close to the edge here. So there was actually ended up being almost no foam right in kind of here. So this was actually a little bit flimsy. So a bit of a boo-boo there. But actually what I did was I mixed up some 5-minute epoxy. You might just barely be able to see it. It's a little bit yellow there. I mixed up some 5-minute epoxy, and I just pushed it down into the groove here along the control horn. The carbon rod here. I normally put my carbon rods in with foam tack just to save weight, and then what I did was I just took a piece of scrap foam and I just squeegeed that epoxy really smooth over a section here. So now this area here where it used to be a little bit flimsy is now nice and stiff because of that epoxy. So anyway, if you found yourself in kind of the same situation, just there you can see the shiny part there, that's the epoxy. So anyway, it's working like a charm. So I think those are some things that help make the airflow to and from the prop more efficient and keep the back end as clean as possible. So like I said, I do all of that sanding and beveling on all of those control surfaces before I put the plane together. So once I have the plane together, you can see I used the KF4 airfoil on this plane. I really like the new setup on the plans. I use the untiled plan, so big sheet. So you have the two KFs ready to go, and you have like a dashed line for the KF4 on the bottom. So what I actually did was I used one of them. One of the templates to cut out this entire top piece, and then I used the piece that I just cut out as a template to cut out my second one, so I'd have the two top pieces. And then I took the other paper template and I used it to cut out the KF4 that goes along the bottom, and then used that KF4 piece that I cut out as the template for the second one. Anyway, that seemed to work out pretty good for me. So I think I've talked about this before. I shaved down the leading edge of the wing with a knife first. This kind of knife right here. You know, it's the nice thing about this is you got lots of blade here, and you can kind of angle it. You know, it's better to angle it when you're doing this than it is to try and cut across, because I find if you try and cut across 90 degrees to the surface you're cutting on, that's where you're going to end up tearing the foam. So I cut with the knife held at an angle like that. Gives much more blade surface and much less tendency for the foam to tear or rip. And number one thing is, I always, before I start doing this on a new plane, I always put a fresh blade in this knife. I buy those blades actually at the dollar store, box of 10 for like $1.50. So even if I use one or even two on a plane, you know, it's cheap that way, but it works really, really well. So I think that you know, taking the time, and thus far for me anyway, it doesn't seem to be affecting slow flight. I tried a little high alpha when I was flying the other day, and actually this plane is has real good potential for great high alpha. It does high alpha better than my Mig29 V4 did anyway. So I like to take the time. You know, it's a little bit fussy. I would say probably total sanding time for everything is, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes or so. But I think it's well worth it, you know, to bevel, sand. I sand down as much as I can just to make the entire plane as sleek and as smooth as possible. You can see like even the leading edge on my nacelles, the fuselage. I just try and round off or symmetrically or smooth every square edge that I possibly can on my entire plane, and I think it, you know, like I said, it's not one little thing, but it's all those little things working together that definitely help. So anyway, those are sort of a few tips. I think if you really want to squeeze that extra little bit of speed out of your MiG, you know, it's the Speedmaster for a reason, and if you want a fast plane out of the V4 fleet, this is probably the first one you want to start with. So anyway, I'm just going to take a pause, and I'm going to plug the plane in here and just show you sort of the throws that I have right now, because I have this plane dialed in right where I want it. So I'll be right back with you. Okay, everybody, back with you again. I've got my my battery in here. I just want to show you, I don't have my 2200 battery exactly where it would need to be for flying, but just for purposes of this. So I've got two marks in there, and you can see I wrote 16 and 22. So where the 16 is, that's where the back of my 1600 milliamp battery would be, and 22 obviously is where the 2200 milliamp battery would be. Luckily for me, here's the stock CFG where this little hole is. Right from the time this plane left my hand, it was bang on. I balanced it, you know, in the house before I went to the field, just to get it balanced bang on. And luckily for me, it just worked out bang on the entire time. So I've got my ESC on the right, receiver on the left there. That seems to give me good balance in the roll. And I don't have any trim. I'm lucky enough right now to have no trim in any of the axis of this plane. So anyway, let me just get the plane oriented here. So here's the throw I have on my, let me just get this down here so maybe you can see. So here's the throw I have in my my elevons right now, and that's probably I would say it's actually, I think it's 2 1/4 this way, 2 1/4 that way, so 4 1/2 inches total. It's probably about a ½ an inch more than what I really need, but I like to have that little tiny bit, you know, so if I'm flying along and oops, you know, a ground or a tree jumps in front of me, I got that extra little bit of emergency elevon as I need it. These elevons, although they're smaller than the V3, I find they're working very, very efficiently. For the way I like to fly anyway. So here's aileron and elevons together. You can see, pardon me, I'll just do a close up here. You can see I actually have very little travel on my ailerons, maybe about 5/8 of an inch one way, so 1 1/4 total. This new elevon shape where they taper out here, I find is working really, really efficiently. So that, coupled with the elevons, I really don't need a lot of aileron. You know, Dave Powers, I think when he introduced this plane, said he didn't even really fly it with ailerons. I just like to have ailerons on my planes just to give me that flexibility if I want to play around with flaps or spoiler on, so that's why I put them on. I think I've talked about this already. This was kind of a boo-boo on my part. I had the full aileron, and then when I realized I wanted to run my push rods on the outside, I didn't want this moving so that it would interfere with the push rod. So I ended up cutting 3/4 of an inch off, moving it in, attaching it to the plane. So now when the aileron moves, that's static, so it won't interfere with my push rods. I'll show you. I've been, as I said, I played around a little bit with some high alpha. So I've been using spoilerons. So again, you can see I've got really very little deflection there. If I have much more than that, it starts to pull the nose up too high. Pardon me, and then a wing rock sets in. But wing rock, even when it does wing rock, the wing rock comes on much slower than it did with my MiG-29 V3, so it's a little bit easier. You know, you can just kind of ease the nose off a little bit, and the wing rock will go away, and then you can adjust from there. Sometimes with my MiG-29 V3, I found the wing rock came on quite aggressively. So I have easier to see from the front. So I have full throws on my rudders there, so plenty of rudder travel. The rudders actually are very effective. I made a slight change on the rudder here. I made the bottom of the hinge parallel, as you can see here, to the wing plate. So I have a little tiny bit more rudder than stock, but the hinges were exactly where it's supposed to be on the plans. So I'm finding thus far that those stock rudders are working really well for me. So anyway, so there's my basic my dialed-in setup, if you want, for flying the way that I want to. I don't find it doesn't, the way I have it set up, I'm not able, if doing sort of super tight rifle bullet rolls and flip loops is stuff that you like to have fun with, then you're probably going to need more travel than what I have. The nice thing is I find the way these control surfaces are designed is I have yet to notice any sort of tip stall tendency or thrust vectoring stall tendency. I know some people might not like the fact that you don't have as much control surface in the thrust vectoring area there, but I actually prefer it, because I find when you've got too much stuff in there, sometimes you can end up getting into a thrust vectoring stall where you're slow and in a bad spot, and you're trying to turn, and you throw this in that much too much surface into the prop wash, and then the next thing your elevons are acting like air brakes rather than elevons, and then life gets real interesting real quick from there. So anyway, so very impressed with this plane thus far. I've posted a few post-flight reports already. I'm not sure how Dave and Scott did it, but wow, this plane let's say I'm at 95% stock configuration compared to my stock configuration MiG-29 V3. This plane it's faster, it's smoother, it's I think it's more stable, especially with this leading edge extension KF here. The faster it goes, the more stable it gets, which good very, very good habit for a plane called the Speedmaster to have. Good slow speed thus far. The minimum amount of high alpha I've been able to do is better than what I found on the V3. Again, easier. I found the build was a little bit easier as well. So just in every category, this plane is a winner and an improvement, in my opinion anyway, over the MiG-29 V3. So anyway, very, very happy with it. I'm looking forward to spending the summer just flying the wings off of this thing. I've got 271 flights to go to reach the 300 flight plateau that I have with my other stock Mig29 V3 in the same configuration. So very excited about this plane. Again, you know, some of those tips that I showed you there, I didn't come up with them. Other people have used them in the past, and you know, I've been experimenting with them on a few different planes that I really wanted to get a little bit more speed and efficiency out of them. Because when you think about it, they do help your plane go fast at top speed. But if you're reducing some drag on a speed plane, it'll be more efficient even when you're just cruising around at 50% throttle. You know, so to me that's a good thing. But again, that's E3 Scott's opinion. So anyway, thanks very much to RC Powers for another awesome knock it out of the park version of the MiG29. If you have any questions, you can just leave them on the comments on the YouTube. I'll also put a link to my blog in the comments on on YouTube, and so you can go to my blog and read some of my post-flight reports and details there as well. So there it is, beautiful RC Powers MiG29 version 4. Just loving this plane. So thanks very much for watching.